Hey babe, welcome to Baseball for Girls, where baseball meets soft girl energy. I'm Shaughnessy, and here we do baseball with heart, humanity, and a little humor. So, whether you're brand new to the game or deep in your baseball era, you're in the right place. So grab something cozy, settle in, and let's get into today's episode. Let's play ball. Hey babes, welcome back to another episode of Baseball for Girls. Today I have another weekly recap for you guys. It'll be the recap for the week of July 20th through July 26th. Overall, from this past week, we saw a lot of winning streaks be broken and a lot of losing streaks continue to go on. So last week, the Red Sox broke their 15-game winning streak. That was the longest winning streak the Red Sox have had since 1946. The Orioles also lost their winning streak. They had a 7-game winning streak, and that was the first time they've had that since 2023. Some honorable mention winning streaks that were broken. So the Astros had a 5-game winning streak that was broken over the weekend. And the Brewers also had a 4-game winning streak that was recently broken as well. And for losing streaks, the Marlins, so the Miami Marlins, are currently on a 12-game losing streak. That is a franchise record, so that means that that's never happened to the Marlins before in their entire existence. So they have set a historical losing streak at 12. The Guardians are currently on a 5-game losing streak, and the Mariners just broke a 4-game losing streak yesterday. But outside of streaks that are just winning several games in a row, the Dodgers have won 3 series in a row during their most recent road trip. So the Dodgers were on the East Coast this weekend and this past week. They played the Yankees, the Mets, and the Phillies, and they won all 3 of those series. Today, they will be going back to the West Coast, and they'll be starting their series against the Seattle Mariners tomorrow. On the other hand, the Phillies have lost 3 series in a row at home. They recently lost to the Yankees this past weekend. They lost to the Dodgers during the week, and they lost to the Mets during that weekend of July 17th. So the Phillies have been struggling a lot at home. They've won 28 games at home and lost 27 games at home, while their away record, they've won 29 games away and they've lost 22 games away. So it does seem as though they play slightly better when they're not at their home stadium. And that really brings us into our sweeps section, where I go through all of the sweeps from the past week and the past weekend. So during the week, the Kansas City Royals swept the Giants, and the Houston Astros swept the Miami Marlins. But like I said, the Marlins have been struggling a lot as of late. They were also swept this weekend by the San Diego Padres, and the Tampa Bay Rays swept the Guardians. Like I mentioned, the Guardians are also on a 5-game losing streak. This week, my sneaky team of the week that we should all be watching out for is the Kansas City Royals. Like I said, they just swept the San Francisco Giants. Currently, the Royals have 45 wins and 62 losses over the season. So they're well below 500 at 421. They're currently 11 and a half games behind the Chicago White Sox, so they are in the American League Central Division. But they've won 7 and lost 3 of their past 10 games, and they're currently on a 2-game winning streak because they split their series against the Detroit Tigers over this past weekend. So they had a 4-game series where they won 2 out of 4. But before that, they won 2 series in a row. So they swept the Giants, like I mentioned, but they also won their series versus the San Diego Padres during the weekend of July 17th. So even though the Royals are quite a bit behind the Chicago White Sox, they do still have a chance to be in the wild card games that happen at the end of the season. So I'll probably make a whole other episode dedicated to how to understand the playoff brackets and the wild card games, because it's honestly super confusing and it wouldn't be easy for me to just explain right now. So I'll make a whole other episode where you can actually listen and figure out the ins and outs of playoff season and why wild card standings are becoming so important at this point of the season. And now for our temperature check, where we talk about the teams that are heating up and the ones that are cooling down. So the first team that I think is heating up is the Washington Nationals. So the Nationals right now are just above 500 at 509. They've won 54 games and they've lost 52 games this season. They are currently 8.5 games behind the Atlanta Braves. They've won 6 games and lost 4 of their past 10. They're currently on a 2-game winning streak, as they just won their series this past weekend against the Arizona Diamondbacks. And overall, they've won 5 of the past 7 series that they've been playing. So they are winning series, they're playing hard, and they've got really good young talent that's showing up for them every night. Their 2 star players are James Wood and CJ Abrams. So James Wood and CJ Abrams actually came from a trade that happened 3 years ago. They were originally in the farm system for the San Diego Padres, so that means they were originally in the minor leagues for the San Diego Padres. But James Wood and CJ Abrams were traded from the Padres to the Nationals, and the Padres received Juan Soto and Josh Bell. That trade is still considered to be one of the best and most fruitful trades in the past couple of seasons. So we know Juan Soto currently plays for the New York Mets, but he did have a very good career when he was playing for the San Diego Padres. He was then traded to the New York Yankees, where he did not perform the best, honestly, and he eventually was traded from the New York Yankees to the Mets in December of 2024. And typically when another team just gets some prospects, which were James Wood and CJ Abrams, they were considered to be prospects because they were in the farm system, so the minor league system. You don't always expect the prospects to end up being your star players. But in this case, it really worked out for the Nationals. So James Wood right now leads all of baseball with 96 runs. So that basically means that he's gone around the diamond 96 times. Currently he has 30 home runs. So having 96 runs kind of overall just goes to show how good he is at getting on base. And it shows that once he gets on base, he's very likely to make it all the way back home. James Wood also currently has 72 RBIs, so 72 runs batted in. And we know an RBI is basically when a player is able to get a hit or a sacrifice fly or something like that that allows another player to reach home and score. CJ Abrams currently has 27 home runs, and that's actually the season record for a Nationals shortstop, so great for him. In comparison, CJ Abrams has 66 runs overall this year, but he does have 82 RBIs, which leads his team. And he has 17 stolen bases. So both of these players are pretty much essential to the success of the Nationals. The Nationals have been winning series. They're definitely going to be a team that you have to beat when you're going through the National League. They are definitely still in contention for being in the wild card race, and a lot of that is due to those two star players. Another team that might be heating up is the San Diego Padres. They've finally made it back to 500, so they've won 53 games and lost 53 games, so they're just right at 500 right now. They are 14 games behind the Dodgers, but they've won 5 and lost 5 of their past 10, and they swept the Marlins this past weekend, so now they're on a 3-game winning streak. So maybe this is the push that the Padres needed to really jumpstart the rest of their season. This could be a very major turning point for this kind of struggling middle half of the season that they've been having. So I'm definitely excited to see how the Padres continue to play for the rest of the season. And for the teams that are cooling down, I have the Guardians. So the Cleveland Guardians are just barely at 500 at 505. They've won 54 games and lost 53 games over this season. They're now 2.5 games behind the Chicago White Sox. So if you remember, the Chicago White Sox are at the top of the division of the American League Central. When I gave a little bit of a breakdown of the division leaders before the All-Star break, the Guardians and the White Sox were tied. The Guardians have since fallen 2.5 games behind them. They've won 3 and lost 7 of their past 10 games, and they're currently on a 5-game losing streak. Like I mentioned, they were swept by the Rays this past weekend. And during the weekday series, they split their series versus the Twins, where they won the first 2 games of that 4-game series and lost the last 2. And during the weekend of July 17th, they lost their series versus the Pittsburgh Pirates. So the Guardians have clearly been struggling as of late. And of course, the other team that's cooling down for sure are the Miami Marlins. So like I mentioned, they are at a franchise record losing streak of 12 games in a row. They've dipped below 500, so they're at 491. They've won 52 games and lost 54 games this season. They're currently 10.5 games behind the Atlanta Braves. They've won 0 and lost 10 of their past 10 games. And it's looking like they might be sellers at the trade deadline instead of buyers. So basically that just means that they're looking to increase their power to hopefully have a sustainable rest of the season. They're most likely to sell Sandy Alcantara, who was definitely pivotal for their success and in this first half of the season. So we'll definitely have to see what the Marlins end up doing at the end of the trade deadline. Now for the home run leaderboard. So right now, Yordan Alvarez is the home run leader at this point of the season. He has 34 home runs, and we know that Yordan Alvarez is the designated hitter for the Houston Astros. Then it's Kyle Schwarber, who's the designated hitter for the Philadelphia Phillies. He currently has 33 home runs. And then we have Hunter Goodman. He is the catcher for the Colorado Rockies. And for some honorable mentions, Ben Rice, who's the first baseman for the New York Yankees. He's at 31 home runs as well. And then James Wood, who I mentioned earlier. He is the right fielder for the Washington Nationals, and he has 30 home runs. And then finally, Junior Caminero, We know him as the third baseman from the Tampa Bay Rays. He currently has 29 home runs. I also wanted to mention Munetaka Murakami. We remember him as the first baseman for the Chicago White Sox. He was on the home run leaderboard a lot at the beginning of this season, but he had an injury in, I believe, the end of May, and he missed 35 games. But on July 10th, he had his first game back, and this past weekend, it was his bobblehead night. So a bobblehead night in baseball is literally when a player is represented as a bobblehead, and the first 10, 15, or 20,000 fans get a free bobblehead when they walk into the stadium. So it was his bobblehead night, and his parents also came from Japan. So his mom and his dad were able to throw the first pitches. His mom threw the first pitch to him, and his dad threw a first pitch to someone else. But I'm sure that was very special for him, because then he ends up hitting 2 home runs in this game. So before his injury, he was at 20 home runs, and so now he's at 22, and I can only expect that we're going to be seeing a lot more home runs from Munetaka Murakami, because he seems to be back and hasn't missed a beat. So now for the games that I'm excited for this week. I'm really excited for the Chicago Cubs versus the St. Louis Cardinals. You know that I love a good interdivisional series. So the Cubs and the Cardinals are both in the National League Central. And we know that the NL Central was dominating the first couple of months of baseball season. Currently, the only team that's below 500 in that division are the Cincinnati Reds, who are at 471, so they're just below 500. They are 16 and a half games behind Milwaukee Brewers, who are leading this division. The Chicago Cubs are currently 7 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers. They've won 59 games and lost 46 over this season, bringing them well above 500 at 562. They've won 6 games and lost 4 games of their past 10. They lost yesterday, but they won their series versus the Pirates this past weekend, so that's also an interdivisional series, as the Pirates are also in the NL Central. The Cardinals are just above 500 at 505. They've won 53 games and lost 52 games this season, and they're 13 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers. They've won 3 and lost 7 of their past 10 games, and they just lost their series versus the Cincinnati Reds this past weekend. So again, an interdivisional series. So the Cardinals lost their interdivisional series versus the Reds, while the Cubs won their interdivisional series versus the Pirates. So we're going to have to see who wins in this series. This year, the Cubs and Cardinals have played 6 games, so 2 series, and the Cardinals lead this head-to-head matchup 4-2. So the Cardinals have won 4 games, while the Cubs have won 2 games, and the Cardinals beat the Cubs in both of those previous series. But right now, the Cardinals are looking like the weaker team, so it'll definitely be an interesting series to watch. And then this weekend, the Rangers are playing the Astros again. This season, the Astros and Rangers have played 10 games against each other, where the Astros have won 6 games and the Rangers have won 4. In their most recent series, the Rangers won 2 out of 3 games. They had a 4-game series at the end of May, where the Astros took 3 out of 4. And at the beginning of May, the first time they had their matchup, the Astros took 2 out of 3. So I am definitely curious to see who is going to be able to win during this series, although it does seem that the Astros have the statistical advantage at least. So for my soft take this week, I think that baseball really teaches us to always celebrate our wins and learn from our losses. There were a lot of winning streaks that were broken over this past week, but I know that those teams were probably feeling so good about themselves and the way that they had been performing. You literally just can't win them all. So being able to celebrate whenever you do have a really good run and know that you are capable of doing it just gives you even more confidence in yourself to keep going in the future. So that's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you again for joining me in the softest corner of sports media, and I hope that you like this episode and that you share it with someone else who you think might like it as well. I hope you guys have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Oh my gosh, wait. Hey babes, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Baseball for Girls. I probably forgot to plug the things that I'm doing, including my Instagram, so I just wanted to come back here and plug all my little things really quick. So my Instagram is baseball4girls_, and I just kind of post on there whenever I upload a new episode. I also have a baseball score tracker. It has about 40 weeks in it, and it has like some notes, sections, so that you can also keep track of games throughout the week. I use it for Major League Baseball games, but you can also use it for minor league games, your kids' games, your friends that are playing baseball, whatever. It's really just a nice way to keep track of all the games and the scores from each game, especially since baseball is typically played in series. So you should check that out. It's just called Baseball Score Log, and it can be found on Amazon, and it's only $9.99. I also include how I personally keep track of games as a little bit of an instruction guide on the first couple of pages, so you can keep score like the same way that I do. Also, I am in the process of writing a ebook, so it'll be a Baseball for Beginners ebook that I have been working on for the past couple of weeks. It'll just kind of walk through the rules of the game, how to watch it for the first time, and just give you a general idea for how to understand baseball from a very, very basic perspective. So I'll definitely let y'all know whenever that is available. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.